The high-profile murder of local ophthalmologist Dr. Brian Stidham rocked our community in 2004 and went on to gain national attention. And to this day, people are still fascinated by the case, and there's a new book about it that tells the parts of the story that didn't make it into newspaper stories or TV reports. Author of Toxic Rage, A Tale of Murder in Tucson, AJ Flick, is here with more. Thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me.
What a shocking story this was back in 2004, and really you covered it from the moment it happened, right?
Yes. I was actually, the night of the murder, I was about a mile away.
Whoa.
And saw the lights, saw the investigation, didn't know what it was about. The next day we found out that this young, very talented, very well-liked eye surgeon was killed in the parking lot of his medical complex. And at the time, at the very beginning, it was a cop beat reporter. I was covering courts for the Tucson Citizen.
Mm-hmm.
And but 10 days later, they arrested 2 people and charged them with the death, and that's when I took over. And I covered the case from that point on through the trials.
And so they had people arrested that quickly.
Yes.
That's amazing. And it was very unusual because typically no one of his stature was the target of a murder like this, right?
Exactly. You don't expect someone like Brian Stidham to show up, horribly stabbed and killed in the parking lot of his complex. And that they accused another eye surgeon of hiring a most unlikely hitman to kill him. It was stunning the murder was stunning to many people in the community, and the arrests of the accused were also a shock to everyone.
It's one of those things that truth is stranger than fiction, and we see it time and time again, but not quite like this. So is that really what keeps it in people's interests all these years later, is the fact that it really reads like a fiction?
Yes, absolutely. It's been the subject of several true crime shows. And in fact, in the last couple of years, I've been asked to come on a couple of them. Mm-hmm. And I asked a producer, I said, after all these years, and this has been the subject of other TV shows, why are you interested in it? And he said, the people.
Yeah.
You just can't get over the people, not only the suspects and the murder victim, but there was a former prosecutor involved in it too, and she became the main accuser of her former fiance when the trials came up.
And so having lived this from the moment it happened, I mean, you have details in this book that, like I said, newspapers, TV reports just haven't reported on, right?
Right.
Like, can you give us a little snippet, a little example of what we might expect?
Yeah, as much as everybody covered the trials and leading up to the trials, there's only so much you can fit in a TV news report or a newspaper article. But most people don't realize that there was a first suspect, and it wasn't Brad Schwartz.
Whoa.
And it wasn't part of coverage because the courts didn't allow that in the trials, so we didn't really report on that. So I go into who the first suspect was, why they suspected her, and what became of that. And there are details like that people don't know about, even the jurors didn't know about, that I wanted to put in the book and tell the whole story.
It's crazy how, sort of like blood spatter, right? There's all these little other spatters that you didn't think were there, and then all of a sudden you get pieces of the story that you hadn't heard before, and that's really what you can get from this book. And being that everything was so maybe confidential and hard to extract from the courts, were there any challenges in publishing this book?
Well, the challenges, most of the challenges in publishing it was supposed to be published around the time of the trials, and it didn't get published.
Okay.
And then the Citizen started fading away, and eventually it too died. Mm-hmm. And so the challenges over the years have been to pick up the manuscript, dust it off, and then find a home for it. And I'm very lucky that Wild Blue Press agreed to publish it, and I'm very excited about it.
Yeah, it's about time it saw the light of day. And real quick, in the last 20 seconds, what's the reaction been from people who have read it?
It's been fantastic. Mm-hmm. I wanted to set out and tell a story and not do a blow-by-blow of either the crime or the court case. I wanted to take all of that information, put it in story form, almost as if it weren't true crime, but maybe a novel. And I'm very happy that a lot of people have reacted to that and they find it easy to read and interesting. So thrilled with that.
It's an enthralling story, and if it's anything like the past pieces you've written, it's probably beautiful. I can't wait to read it. AJ Flick, pleasure to sit down with you, and thanks for joining me.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Now, there are 2 upcoming book signings. The first there on your screen is taking place at Clues Unlimited on Fort Lowell on November 10th at 3 p.m. and then November 17th at Mostly Books on Speedway at 1 p.m. For more information on any of this, log on to facebook.com/writer AJ Flick.